Howdy fellas, and welcome back to my channel. For those of you that don't know me, if you're just now joining us, my name is Delta Grace, and this is where I do all sorts of amazing, cool makeup things. I'm a little bit obsessed with makeup, and I am really enjoying being able to share what I know and what I love to do with you guys right now. If you are returning from my first ever YouTube video, I want to say welcome back and thank you so much for your support. It's been pretty fun and I'm excited to keep going. Now, I would like to congratulate all of you, whether you are a first-time viewer or not, because you have just been enrolled in the Delta G's School of Glam. That's right. So for the next few weeks, we're going to be taking some time and breaking down the individual steps of my makeup process. I've had several friends who have expressed to me some concern that they don't usually get enough instruction or explanation of different things, different items, what they can do, what they're supposed to do, what different words mean, and how to use them, essentially. So that's really what I want to be doing. I want to just take some time and explain how I use certain products the way that I do and what I personally know of the way they work and the way they're supposed to work. I've been doing this for a few years now, but I am by no means a professional. So let's just go ahead and throw that little disclaimer out there right now. I am just a girl who really likes makeup, a girl who watches lots of YouTube videos. So this is what I know. This is what I personally know. This is what I've discovered on my makeup journey. And I'm not a professional, I'm not certified, but these are some things I've picked up along the way, and I think they can be really useful for all of you guys. I also want to throw out just a quick additional disclaimer here and start out this whole series by saying there are no rules to makeup, and that is the beauty of it. That is the great thing about it. There are no rules. Do what you want. Do what makes you feel. My cat's running around here in the room with me, so if you hear strange noises and things knocking or tinkling of bells, that would be her. I may show her to you guys in a minute because she's super cute and I love her. Back to the point. There are no rules to makeup. It's like art. There are certain things that you can do, and there are certain ways that tools and products can be used most effectively, but at the end of the day, it's really up to you. What do you personally like? What I'm hoping to do is address some of the concerns that I've heard and give you the best possible tools and techniques to use when you guys are all on your makeup journey, and so that's what we're going to do. Today, for our first edition of Delta Grace's School of Glam, we are going to start out by talking about the face base. That's right. Before we can get started with all of the fun stuff like eyeshadow and contour and blush and highlight and all that amazing things, we have to start out with a nice, smooth, flawless canvas, and we are going to do that by using three things that we're going to talk about today. And those three things are primer, foundation, and concealer. Three very, very important aspects of makeup. Not the most exciting, but they are going to make sure that you look fabulous, and they're going to set a nice foundation for whatever crazy creative look it is you decide to come up with. And for those of you who don't know, who are just joining us, the whole point of this channel is to be affordable and accessible to anybody and everybody who might want to do makeup, to get started, to get better with it. Anybody and everybody is welcome, but we do focus primarily on drugstore affordable makeup brands and products here on my channel. You will not see any luxury brands, you will not see any high-end makeup brands. Okay, back up. You may see some, but it's usually stuff that I've gotten in little subscription kits or trial sizes, and I do try to keep that to a minimum as much as possible because it would really defeat the purpose of having an affordable makeup channel. So, without any further ado, we are going to go ahead and get started with our face base. And as you guys can see, I am not wearing any product on my face so far, except I've got my eyes done, my eyebrows, and everything like that. I don't like doing my eyeshadow and brows first, just because I find it's more tricky to work with, to make sure that you don't cover anything up. That's why my under eyes are pretty bare here. There's nothing there, because when I go to put concealer on and things like that, it would just get covered up by the product. But I also didn't want my eyes to be totally dead by the end of the video, so we're going for it. Here's what we're doing. I don't have any primer on or anything like that. I washed my face a little while ago, so we're clean, we're moisturized, and we are ready to go. And the first thing that we are going to talk about is probably the most important step in any makeup routine, if you're asking me, which you're not. Or maybe, I don't know, if you're here, maybe you are asking me. I don't know. Anyway, so we're going to be talking about primer. And primer is extremely important to any makeup routine. Now, some people like to use a moisturizer instead of a primer and just have that be the base of their makeup look, and that's okay if you want to do that, if you're comfortable with doing that. The thing is that primers and moisturizers are formulated and designed to do two very different things. And if you're using a moisturizer for your primer, it may not work quite as well as an actual primer, because primers are designed to make your makeup stay for a really long time, to make it look smooth, blend seamlessly, and look nice and flawless. Moisturizers can also tend to make your skin look a little bit oily throughout the day, especially if you already struggle with oily skin. I would not recommend using a moisturizer as a primer, but again, there are no rules to makeup, so if it's something that makes you comfortable, go for it. If it makes you happy, I'm happy. I'm just here to share my expertise, my not really expertise, but we're here anyway. So the primer that I'm going to be talking about today is this little guy right here. This is the Wet n Wild Photo Focus Face Primer Matte, and this has got some keywords on here that we're going to talk about in just a quick second. I did want to talk about this guy because it's one that I've been loving recently. Wet n Wild is a brand that I'm super into right now. It's really affordable, really accessible. I think this guy was like $5 maybe or something like that, and that's pretty typical of Wet n Wild products. The prices are easily attainable and they're really good. You don't sacrifice quality for the ability to purchase them with these products. That's really the reason why I like it. Now, let's talk about some of our keywords. This one right here is the primary keyword that you want to be looking for when it comes to a primer, because different primers have different finishes. They do different things to your makeup and they give a different overall effect depending on what you want. This is a mattifying primer, and you can see it by the word matte right there. What a mattifying primer does is it will take away the appearance of any oils, of the sort of lifelikeness of your skin, and it will make you look like a mannequin. Very flawless, very flat, and some people really like that, and some people really don't, so it really comes down to what you like and what you don't like. As you can see, I've got, these are my natural oils. I'm starting to get a little bit oily because we washed our face a little while ago, but that's what it is. A mattifying primer is going to make sure that none of the shine shows up through your makeup throughout the day. If you have dry skin, I would be careful about using a mattifying primer because they can irritate already dry skin and they can make your skin even more dry, because that's kind of the point, is to dry out the face and keep it dry throughout the day. If you have oily skin, I would recommend a matte primer because it will sort of negate the effect of those oils on the skin, and it will keep your makeup looking flatter throughout the day, and it will prevent as much oil from coming through. This is the only one I brought with me. I'm actually at my parents' house for spring break right now. This is the only primer that I brought with me. I don't experiment too much with primers because when I find one I like, I tend to stick with it, and this is the one I like right now. But we can talk about some of the other kinds of primers that are out there, what they do and what they're supposed to be for, as I put on my primer to start my base. Now, the other kinds of primers that you guys can see, and I'm just putting a little bit on my middle finger here, and then I'm going to rub the tips of my fingers together like so. Now, some of the other kinds of primers that you guys can see would be dewy primers, moisturizing primers, or blurring and pore filling primers, and those will all do different things. Now what I'm doing with this is I'm taking it and I'm just very gently rubbing it into the spots of my face where I have the largest issue with pores and unevenness, which is here on my chin, the cheeks, the nose, and the forehead. I don't usually take my primer too far back along my cheeks or along the edges of my forehead, mostly in the center, down the center of the nose, and across the apples of the cheeks, where I have the biggest issue with pores and uneven texture. Dewy primers do almost the exact opposite of what a matte primer would do, and they will increase and enhance the lifelikeness of your face. It will keep that shine, and as you can see, this primer has already taken care of a lot of the shine that I already had, and it's going to make it stay like that throughout the day. A dewy primer would keep that natural shine and would give your makeup sort of a luminescent glow. These can be nice for people who have dry skin or people who don't want to look like a mannequin or don't want to look like they have a ton of makeup on. It can help be a little bit more lifelike. But I know for a lot of people who have oily skin, moisturizing and dewy primers can just sort of enhance the oiliness of the skin, and so they want to kind of stay away from that dewy that dewy primer and that dewy effect. Somebody's saying hello. Say hello. Okay, bye-bye. Okay. Now, for the other kind of primer that I mentioned, it was poreless or blurring. Those are two words or phrases that kind of mean the same thing, and it means that it's a really heavily silicone-based primer. It has that sort of dry but jelly texture that's really strange, and I don't really like to touch it because it's just weird. But basically what that is it's got lots of silicones in it that are supposed to fill in the little craters on your face called pores, and it is supposed to smooth them out so that when you put your foundation on, you can't see them, and it looks like you've been photoshopped or something. Sometimes these primers don't live up to the pore filling or blurring effect, and that's okay. They haven't quite figured out their formula, and it's fine. But some of them really do, and some of them really work, and if that's the effect you're going for, have at it. They're great foundations. I personally don't like using them just because of the weird texture, but a lot of people really like them, and the only thing that you really need to watch out for with that is that because it's designed to cover up the appearance of your pores, sometimes it can settle into those pores, and if you have acne-prone skin, like moi, you might want to stay away from those because it can aggravate your acne. It can settle into your pores and be really difficult to clean out, and it can aggravate your breakouts. It's just trade-offs. Alright, so that is it for primer. We have a nice base, and as you guys can see, I'm already looking way less shiny, and this is going to be really important for making your makeup stay on all day long. I've also heard people who kind of have complaints about makeup not staying, foundation rubbing off throughout the day, it's not looking as good as they want it to, and my first question is always, what kind of primer are you using? And the answer is typically something like, I don't use a primer. That's okay. If you are comfortable not using a primer, by all means, don't use one. But if you have an issue with getting your makeup to stay, it may be because you're not using this. This is what's going to ensure that my foundation lasts all day long and that it looks really good throughout that time. So this is really important. If you want your makeup to stay, use a primer. Okay, so we're going to go on now to the next part of our 3-step face base process, and that is foundation. I actually have 3 foundations with me while I'm at my parents' house for spring break that I kind of want to chat about and share with you guys, and I'm going to show you how I apply them. This one right here is one of my favorites lately, and this is the Maybelline 24-hour Superstay, the Maybelline Superstay Full Coverage 24-hour foundation. It's got lots of different identifying words on here. I love this guy. This is in the shade 112 Natural Ivory. It's really great, and it does everything that it says that it does. So we'll get into those keywords here in just a second because those are what we want to watch out for. I also have a Milani Conceal and Perfect 2-in-1 Concealer Foundation in the shade 00B Light. And I have a Wet n Wild Cushion Foundation in the shade 107A Cream Ivory. What I really like about Wet n Wild foundations is that they have the undertone on the back identified somewhere on the foundation. I have 2 liquid foundations at home that I really like. They're different shades, but I mix them together and they get closer to my shade. I have a difficult time matching foundation shades to my skin, and unfortunately, that's not really something I personally can help you out with. It's just something you're gonna have to go to the store, test them out, see what works best on your skin. And there are a couple of different ways that you can do that. The first is to make sure that it matches here on your jawline. So if you're at Ulta or somewhere and they have testers, don't open and test makeup in the store. Just please don't do that. It spreads bacteria. It spreads bacteria. Use the tester so that you can clean it off and your fingers and everybody stays nice and healthy. You can test foundation shades on your jawline right here if you're at a place that has testing makeup available, and you can talk to the advisors who are there and they can help you find your perfect shade. But excuse me, almost forgot the second part. So the other way that you can do that is you can match your foundation shade to your neck, because weirdly enough, your face and your neck are two different shades. Usually, mine are. So if I want to not have to worry about blending into my neck, what I can do is I can just match my foundation shade to my neck so that when I put it on my face, it just matches pretty seamlessly and I don't have to worry about blending in or getting foundation on my clothes or anything like that. So, like I said, what I really like about these Wet n Wild foundations is that they have the undertone listed on the back in addition to the shade name. So they have a huge shade range of different things, and there are also different undertones. My skin has a bit of a warmer undertone, so it's slightly more yellow than a cooler undertone that would be more of a bluish hue, or a neutral that would be more of a pinkish or a red. So if you know what kind of undertone, what kind of shade your skin has, that Wet n Wild identifying label is really nice, and I super like it. Okay, so let's talk about some keywords with foundation. Those are going to be back to your mattifying or dewy. They do pretty much the same thing as a mattifying or dewy primer. A matte foundation will be drier and flatter and reduce the look of oil or shininess. And a dewy foundation or a luminous foundation, those are two that pretty much mean the same thing, dewy and luminous, will enhance the look of shininess. And again, if you have dry skin, maybe stay away from the matte, and if you have oily skin, maybe stay away from the dewy, because those are just going to exaggerate your issues. The other kind of keywords to look for with foundation are the level of coverage, and coverage just means how much does it cover on your face. As you guys can see, my red spots are a little bit better this time than they were last week when I filmed my first video, but we still have some pretty aggressive things that I would like to cover up and not have out there in the world, like I'm putting it on YouTube right now. Anyway, so I actually wanted to apply this one for you guys, this one right here, just because it's the one that I really love. I want to show you two different methods that you can use to apply your foundation and really talk about what full coverage means. So I have a couple of different tools here that I want to talk about. I do plan on doing a whole video on makeup tools and how to use them when I get back home and I have access to my full collection, but for now I have three. I have two beauty sponges here. This is a Real Techniques beauty sponge, and this one is a Morphe beauty sponge. And then I also have a foundation brush right here. This is the Jeffree Star JS1 from Morphe. So, let's talk about our sponges first. These are really nice. I love the points on these because they make it really easy to get up in here in the corners of your eyes, and they also make it easy to do detail work. You can do way more things than just concealer and foundation with these sponges, and it's super nice. This one I really love because it has this nice flat edge, and I will use this later on in some of my other videos and show you guys why I love the flat edge so much. But for foundation, I love it because it gets in here in the weird sort of crevices around your nose that can be hard to work with, and can sometimes not get as much coverage as the rest of your face just because they're kind of weird crevices. This gets in there really nicely and makes sure that your foundation is even and smooth. Now, with your sponge, what you want to do is you want to get it damp first. You don't want to use a dry sponge because it's just not going to work. So if you wet the sponge, you run it under the faucet and then squeeze all of the water out that you can, you're going to be left with a damp sponge. There's a little bit of moisture in here, but not too much. What that's going to do is it's going to help smooth away any excess product. As you can see, I used this yesterday, and here's some of that excess product so that there's not too much on your face, and so that when you apply it, it looks nice and even and flawless. I'm going to use the sponge on the right hand side of my face and the brush on the left hand side of my face. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my foundation, I'm going to put a little bit on the back of my hand like so, just like this. And I'm going to take my sponge, I'm going to dip that in just a little bit, get some on the sponge, and I'm going to dot this all over my face, right? You may hear some YouTubers refer to this as pouncing. I think that's super cute. But yeah, so we're just going to dab all over and blend everything out. This foundation from Maybelline is a full coverage foundation. And I will show you here in just a second what that looks like compared to the other side. You can also have light to medium coverage foundations, which are pretty much exactly what it sounds like. A lighter coverage foundation will feel lighter weight on your face, but it will also not cover up as much and not do as much for your skin as a full coverage foundation does. So it's just kind of a trade-off. What are you feeling that day? Are you feeling full glam? Are we, do we want to look a little bit more natural? That is entirely up to you. I got nothing against anybody that uses light coverage foundations. It's personally not for me, just because I have such an issue with my skin as it is. All right. So here we have this side of the face all complete, and as you can see, it's way different on this side than it is on the other side. This is what a full coverage foundation will do for you. It gives you a really nice, smooth canvas on which to work, and it takes away all of the imperfections. This is a really nice foundation. I love it, and I'm pretty sure it was like $11, something like that. Pretty normal for drugstore foundations and pretty easily attainable. So on this side, I'm going to be taking my foundation brush. I don't really like using foundation brushes that much, just because sometimes they can be really streaky and they can look like you've just sort of painted on your face. But this particular brush is really soft, and the flat edge reduces the risk of having that weird streaky appearance with a foundation brush. So it's really nice, it's super soft, and this sort of flat edge is what you want when you're applying foundation with a brush. Rounder edges, or those sort of flat paintbrush looking foundation brushes, are okay, but they may actually, increase the risk of having streaks in your foundation when you apply it. With this brush, I get a nice, smooth, flawless application and a nice airbrushed finish. Now, you won't be able to see the difference between one side and the other on camera. I don't have a fancy camera. In fact, I don't even really have a camera. We're filming this on my phone, in case you didn't already know that. But this is, regardless, this is not super high definition. It's not getting you super close. You can't tell a difference. Mostly what I wanted to do was just show you the difference in how you apply them and how to use these tools. The last thing I want to mention about foundation before we move on to our last step is with these sponges, you want to make sure that you're dabbing and pressing product into the skin, not dragging or harsh blending like this, because this is going to move your foundation all over the place and put it in places where you don't want it. So you'll wind up with patches that are bunched up and then patches that are super bald. So just dabbing, pressing into the skin is the way to go when you're using a damp sponge. All right, let us now move on to our third and final step in today's amazing video, and that is concealer. I didn't bring my full collection with me, but I did bring 3 that I'm really liking at the moment. I have the e.l.f. 16-Hour Camo, which is my absolute favorite right now. I have the Makeup Revolution Conceal and Define right here. And then I also have another Wet n Wild Photo Focus Concealer, which is really nice. This one is in the shade Fair Beige. The Makeup Revolution is in the shade C3. And then the e.l.f. Camo Concealer is in the shade Medium Peach. I really like all of these, and for different reasons. Now let's talk about color of concealer here for just a quick second. So when using a concealer, you want to pick one that's just a couple of shades lighter than your foundation. So here we have the foundation that I just used, and here is one of my concealers, and you can see that the concealer is definitely a little bit lighter than the foundation. This is what we want, because I don't usually use a concealer just to cover up blemishes. It's great for that, and it does that, but this can also be used to highlight your face. If you're using a concealer that is the same shade as your foundation, you can look like a toy, like a mannequin or something that's not real, because it will just sort of make your face look really flat and unengaged, not lifelike. Strange. Using a light colored concealer like this to highlight the high points of your face, as I will demonstrate momentarily, is going to kind of bring the focus into the center of your face. It's going to bring some attention to the points of your face that naturally receive light, and it's going to make you look brighter, fresher, more awake, and more real, more lifelike. We've already eliminated the moisture from our face with our matte primer and our matte foundation. Let's not go completely full on mannequin and use a concealer that's a little bit lighter than your foundation to bring a little bit more life back into your face. I'm not going to use the e.l.f. one today because that's the one I used in the last video. I really enjoy it. So today I'm actually going to be using the Makeup Revolution Conceal and Define. Now, a lot of beauty YouTubers were talking about how they thought that this was a dupe for the Tarte Shape Tape. I wouldn't know. Never used Tarte Shape Tape in my life. And that's that. So I don't have anything to compare it to as far as that goes, but I can tell you what I have discovered about the concealer as a whole. I prefer the e.l.f. concealer because I feel like it's fuller coverage. It covers more. The color's more opaque, so you can see less of your dark circles through the concealer with the e.l.f. foundation. With the e.l.f. concealer. This guy right here is a little bit less full coverage. It's not quite as opaque. It's still nice. It still works. It's still great. It was $7. Awesome. Now, what I do like about these two concealers is they have what's called a large Doe Foot Applicator. This is a Doe Foot Applicator with the angled edge here, and it's really fuzzy. It looks like a little deer's foot, so that's why they call it a Doe Foot Applicator. These two have large Doe Foot Applicators, whereas the Wet n Wild one has a smaller Doe Foot Applicator. I like these larger applicators. See? Can you kind of see the difference in the size? And the e.l.f. one is even bigger, so there's that. I like the larger applicators because it spreads more product in one swipe, and you have to dip into the little jar, bottle, whatever, less. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to use this, and we're going to talk a little bit more about how and why in just a quick second. So I'm going to take off some of the excess, and I'm going to just kind of put this underneath my eyes here, and I'm also going to take it in sort of a little triangle here. I'm not going to draw a triangle, but that's what this shape is going to do for us. It's going to give us, we're going to highlight this triangle here along the sides of the nose and underneath the eyes. And I'm going to do this side of the face with concealer and then just leave the other side without so you guys can see the difference. I'm going to take my damp beauty sponge again, and I'm just going to do the exact same thing as I did with my foundation and pounce all over the areas of the face that I'm trying to conceal. Right? So we're taking it down, and I also take mine just a little bit further back out by my temples just to sort of bring out that lightness and kind of elongate the face just a little bit. So, as you guys can see, this side, not bright, not lifelike, kind of dead looking. You can see the dark circles, it's not that great. This side we got over here, I look fresh, awake, open, and just ready to tackle the day. And that's what concealer will do for you. Like I said, this is a nice concealer. Is it my favorite? No. Does it work? Yes. So, and some people really enjoyed it, and that's totally fine. So, for me, I also like to use my concealer on the high points of my face or the places that light hits naturally. So I'm going to take this on my chin, just a little bit here, just a little dot, down the side of my nose, down the bridge of my nose, a little bit on my Cupid's bow to draw attention to that, and then on my forehead in a nice little starburst. Again, we're only doing half of the face so that you guys can see what it looks like without it and compare the two. Damp beauty sponge, same exact thing, pouncing all over the place. Okay? Try not to get too much on the other side so you can see that. Alright, and there we have it. And you can totally, there's a definite difference, especially here on my forehead and here on my chin. This is just going to emphasize the high points of the face, and it's going to give us a really nice contrast to any contour or bronzer that we're going to do later on. And of course, it can always be used to cancel out blemishes and dark spots. So I've got spots here. If I wanted to, I could cover them up with the concealer. But since I really want you guys to see the difference between one side and the other, we're not going to do that today. And you guys can just look at my imperfect face. So, with concealer, with highlight and concealer, without highlight and concealer. All right. And I believe that concludes the face base. I'm not going to talk about baking and setting today. We're going to do that on the next episode of Delta's School of Glam, because baking is a whole process on its own that I want to take some more time and talk about. So that's what we're going to be doing next time. We're going to be talking about setting powders, what they do, how to use them, why to use them, what baking is, how to bake, all that good stuff. All right? And I believe that concludes today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you so much for joining us at Delta G's School of Glam, talking about the face base and all of that good stuff, the canvas that you need to create the amazing, wonderful looks of artistry that I know you guys are capable of. So I want to just say thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for joining me on this insane YouTube journey. If you liked this video, if you liked the previous video, and if you are excited about the next episode of Delta's School of Glam, why don't you go ahead and click that subscribe button down below and click the bell icon to make sure that you get notified whenever I post a new video. Like this one, comment down below if there's content you guys want to see or more you want to see from me. I hope you enjoyed my cat's surprise guest appearance. She's adorable, and she will be featured much more on this channel because I love her. And I love all of you. So I hope you have a great day. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.